September 2025. The South China Sea, 50 nautical miles east of Kuantan. HMS Prince of Wales, 65,000 tons, the largest warship the Royal Navy has ever built, moves slowly through calm water. Her flight deck is empty. Her aircraft are below. She's not here for exercises. Below her keel, on the seabed, rests another ship with the same name, the one that was here first. Alongside the British carrier, a Japanese destroyer, JMSDF Akebono, holds station. Wreaths are lowered from both decks. They drift apart on the surface. Slowly, the sea takes them, a British carrier and a Japanese warship, together above ships that Japan sank. The age of the battleship ended here, not gradually, not on paper, not in the deliberations of admirals. On a bright December morning in 1941, in approximately 127 minutes, two of Britain's most powerful warships went down in a single afternoon. The lesson their sinking taught, that the aircraft had made the battleship obsolete, that the carrier was now the instrument of naval power. Is the Navy sailing overhead? How did this happen? And how close did it come to never happening at all? Singapore Harbour, evening of the 8th of December, 1941. Force Z clears the harbour mouth and gathers speed into the darkness. On the bridge of HMS Prince of Wales, a small, precise man in an admiral's uniform watches the sea ahead. His departure signal to the fleet has just been transmitted. We are out looking for trouble, and no doubt we shall find it. He is right about that. Britain in the autumn of 1941 is fighting for its life across three theaters simultaneously: the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, North Africa, and staring down the prospect of a fourth. Japan has been moving south for a decade. Manchuria in 1931. Full-scale war with China in 1937. French Indochina in 1941. The pressure has been building toward a breaking point that everyone can feel and nobody can stop. Singapore sits at the tip of the Malayan Peninsula, keystone of British imperial power in Asia, one of the busiest ports in the world. For 20 years, its defense has rested on a single assumption: that in a crisis, Britain can and will dispatch a powerful battle fleet to deter or defeat any Japanese aggression. It is a reassuring idea. By late 1941, it is also a fiction. Every worked-up capital ship is locked into operations elsewhere. The war in Europe has consumed the Royal Navy's reserves of men, ships, and strategic flexibility. The fleet that was supposed to race to Singapore in a crisis does not exist. What does exist is Winston Churchill, and Churchill has a plan. He proposes to send two capital ships to Singapore as a deterrent. The logic is borrowed from the North Sea. Just as the presence of Tirpitz tied down British naval units, so two powerful ships in the Far East might give Japan pause before striking south. His first Sea Lord, Admiral of the fleet Sir Dudley Pound, is not persuaded. Britain lacks the escort ships, lacks the air cover, lacks the margin for a strategic gamble of this kind. He warns Churchill explicitly. Churchill sends the ships anyway. He also announces the deployment publicly, which means the Japanese know exactly what is coming. A warning arrives from another direction in November. Field Marshal Jan Smuts, the South African Prime Minister and one of Churchill's few trusted military confidants, sends a telegram. He sees the division of British and American naval strength between Pearl Harbor and Singapore as two fleets, each separately inferior to the Japanese Navy. And he names what he sees with the precision of a man who has thought it through: an opening for a first-class disaster. Churchill does not change course. The two ships carry the weight of two very different histories. HMS Prince of Wales entered service in early 1941, 35,000 tons, capable of over 28 knots, armed with 10 14-inch guns and 16 5.2 5-inch dual-purpose guns. Her 8 octuple anti-aircraft batteries are, in theory, the most sophisticated in the fleet. She carried Churchill across the Atlantic to his first meeting with Roosevelt. Churchill remembers the warmth of her crew, and it is partly for that reason he chooses her as flagship for the East. She has already been in combat. Her captain, John Catterall Leach, took her into action against the Bismarck in May. Leach has seen a modern capital ship under fire and knows exactly how thin the margin for error is. He is experienced, capable, and professionally aware of dangers his admiral is not prepared to acknowledge. HMS Repulse is a different kind of ship entirely. Long, sleek, fast, a battle cruiser of the First World War era, refitted 3 times and still possessing a physical elegance that newer ships cannot match. 32 knots, 6 15-inch guns, and 30,000 miles, steamed since 1939 without losing a single ship in any convoy she protected. Her crew love her the way sailors love a lucky ship. Her captain is William Tennant, billed to those who serve under him. He was senior naval officer ashore at Dunkirk in May 1940, the man responsible for organizing the evacuation while the army disintegrated around him. He is calm under pressure. He adapts. He reads a situation for what it is, not for what doctrine says it should be. In almost every meaningful way, he is the opposite of the man commanding Force Z. Tom Phillips is 53 years old and 5 feet 4 inches tall. He has risen to the apex of the Admiralty's intellectual machinery. Vice Chief of the Naval Staff, the Navy's strategic mind for the early years of the war, without significant Sea Command experience in modern warfare. He is sharp, demanding, and formidably well-read in naval strategy. He holds, with the particular certainty of a man who has thought deeply about something and arrived at the wrong answer, the conviction that capital ships can protect themselves against air attack. Admiral Andrew Cunningham, the finest fighting admiral Britain has, hears of Phillips' appointment and asks, what on earth is he going to the Far East for? He hardly knows one end of a ship from the other. The fleet knows him as Tom Thumb. Admiral Somerville calls him the Pocket Napoleon. No one passes Cunningham's concern along. The plan, such as it is, includes one crucial element designed to address the problem of air cover. HMS Indomitable, a new fleet carrier, 23,000 tons, carrying Hawker C, Hurricanes, and Fairey Fulmars, is allocated to Force Z specifically to provide fighter protection. She is the shield that is supposed to travel with the swords. On the 3rd of November, 1941, HMS Indomitable runs aground on a sandbar at the entrance to Kingston Harbor, Jamaica. She requires 12 days in dry dock in Norfolk, Virginia. She never joins the fleet. The Japanese attack, as it is actually planned, anticipates fighter opposition. The 22nd Air Flotilla's formations are designed to absorb losses from carrier-based interceptors. Their approach speeds, their altitudes, their timing all account for the possibility of hurricanes overhead. Without Indomitable, Force Z sails into the South China Sea without a single aircraft that can defend the fleet from altitude. A second carrier exists, HMS Hermes, putting into Simonstown at the Cape at the same time Prince of Wales prepares to leave. She is set aside on grounds of insufficient speed. No further consideration is given to the air cover problem. The trap is built before the ships ever sail. Force Z clears Singapore Harbor at 17:35 on December 8th. The Japanese have already struck Pearl Harbor. 8 American battleships are sunk or disabled. The pre-war plan had imagined those battleships reinforcing the British at Singapore. That plan is finished. Japanese troops are landing at Kota Baru in northern Malaya. The army is being pushed back. The political pressure to act is overwhelming, even though Phillips has told the American commanders privately that his 2 ships are insufficient to confront the Japanese fleet. He sails anyway. His signal reaches the fleet as Singapore's lights fade astern. Tennant relays the spirit of it to his own crew. We are going to look for trouble. I expect we shall find it. Phillips chooses not to coordinate with the Royal Australian Air Force before sailing. He fears breaking operational security. There is no formal arrangement for air cover if the ships run into trouble. There is only an assumption, never examined, never tested, that if Force Z needs help, help will somehow arrive. In Saigon, 400 miles to the north, the answer is already airborne. Vice Admiral Nishizo Tsukahara's 22nd Air Flotilla, 3 groups, 94 aircraft, half-armed with torpedoes, has been pre-positioned specifically because Japanese planners anticipated a British sortie from Singapore. Many of these men are veterans of the air war over China. They have trained, specifically in anti-shipping tactics. The trap was set before Force Z left the harbor. December 9th, the tropical weather that has been screening Force Z breaks. The sky clears. At 14:15, the Japanese submarine I-65 surfaces, reports 2 enemy battleships, and sends the bearing north. By evening, Phillips knows he has been spotted. He has run out of weather to hide behind. At 20:55, he signals his fleet. I have most regrettably cancelled the operation because, having been located by aircraft, surprise was lost and our target would be almost certain to be gone by the morning and the enemy fully prepared for us. Force Z turns south towards Singapore. For a moment, it looks like escape. At 23:35, a signal arrives reporting an enemy landing at Kuantan, a key position on the eastern Malayan coast, 150 miles to the south. Phillips does not break radio silence to query it. He does not wait for confirmation. He turns Force Z southwest and increases speed to 25 knots. The report is wrong. There is no Japanese landing at Kuantan. There never was. Force Z was 2 hours from safety. 3 things are now happening simultaneously that Phillips cannot see. In Saigon, the 22nd Air Flotilla is arming 94 aircraft. The night attack was aborted by bad weather. The dawn launch is already planned. At Sembawang Airfield in Singapore, 10 Brewster Buffaloes of No. 453 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force, are fueled and ready. They are Force Z's designated Fleet Defense Squadron. Flight Lieutenant Tim Viggers has the radio procedures used by Force Z. His pilots are waiting for a call that is not coming, and the 22nd Air Flotilla, sweeping south along the 105th meridian in the morning light, has nearly given up. They have overflown Force Z's position. They are running low on time. They are turning back for Saigon. When an ensign aboard a Japanese reconnaissance aircraft looks down through clear air and sees white bow waves cutting through blue-green water below. Repulse and Prince of Wales, moving fast. His report reaches the strike force. Sighted 2 enemy battleships, 70 nautical miles southeast Kuantan, course southeast. The strike force turns south. At 800, Force Z is standing off Kuantan. The Walrus float plane has already swept the coast and found nothing. HMS Express, sent in closer, signals back. All is quiet as a wet Sunday afternoon. Phillips knows the report was wrong. He does not yet know that 94 aircraft have just been given his position. He turns east to investigate some barges his destroyers have sighted in no particular hurry, as if the morning has nowhere urgent to be. At 10:26, Repulse's radar picks up a contact bearing 220 degrees. At 11:13, the first aircraft appear overhead. 8 high-level bombers of the Mihoro group come in at altitude, targeting Repulse. Tennant sees them early. He throws the helm over, works up to 25 knots, begins threading 36,000 tons through the sky, falling toward him. One bomb hits the port hangar and starts a small fire. The fire is controlled quickly. The crew is exultant. Tennant knows better. High-level bombers are not the real weapon, they are the distraction. At 11:40, 17 torpedo planes of the Genzan group arrive and split their attack. 9 peel off toward Prince of Wales. Captain Leach begins his turn. One aircraft is brought down. The 9 torpedoes miss. The remaining 8 Genzan planes then turn on repulse. Tennant reads the approach angles and drives through them. The wakes pass alongside. Repulse emerges without a single hit. But in the water beneath Prince of Wales, something has already happened that cannot be undone. One torpedo has found the port outer propeller shaft. The spinning shaft, when struck, tears open its own tunnel. Flooding drives directly into the machinery spaces. The dynamos powering the aft section of the ship and nearly all of her anti-aircraft mounts are gone. In a single hit, the most modern battleship in the Royal Navy has been effectively disarmed, stripped of the one weapon that might have thinned the incoming waves. She is making 9 knots. She cannot steer. At 12:10, Prince of Wales hoists the signal for "not under control." The Japanese can read signal flags. Every pilot in every subsequent wave now knows exactly which ship to hit. While Prince of Wales begins her slow dying, Repulse is still alive. Tennant is doing something that should not be possible. Reading incoming, torpedo approach angles and outmaneuvering them in real time, wave after wave. The count builds. 5 evaded. 10. 15. 19 torpedo wakes threaded or outrun. Tennant on the bridge, entirely composed, working the ship like a destroyer skipper. For a moment, it seems as though skill alone might be enough. The Japanese change tactics. The final attack on Repulse comes from both sides simultaneously. There is no turn that answers a pincer. Port means torpedoes to starboard. Starboard means torpedoes to port. 4 hits land in rapid succession. The ship that has evaded 19 torpedoes cannot evade these 4. She takes on water immediately and begins to roll. Tennant broadcasts over the tannoy. His voice is calm. All hands on deck. Prepare to abandon ship. A pause. Then, God be with you. At 12:33, Repulse rolls to port, hangs for nearly 2 minutes at 60 degrees, and capsizes. Of her 1,309 men, 754 will be pulled from the water. 513 will not. The full strike now turns to Prince of Wales. She is still afloat. Her 2 forward 5.2 5-inch turrets, the only guns still working, swing toward incoming aircraft. At 12:41, the bombing runs begin. One bomb penetrates the upper deck and detonates in the cinema flat, where the wounded have been gathered out of the way of the fighting. At 12:52, Phillips signals for tugs. Leach repeats the request at 1:01 p.m. Phillips signals again at 1:07 p.m. They are 70 miles from shore. There are no tugs. The signals transmit into an empty frequency from a ship taking on 18,000 tons of water, from a man who has not broken radio silence to call the 10 fighters sitting on a runway less than half an hour away. At 1:15 p.m., Prince of Wales begins listing rapidly. At 1:20 p.m., she capsizes. Her bilge keel strikes HMS Express, still alongside taking off the wounded. Phillips and Leach are on the bridge. Neither survives. At 1:20 p.m., 10 Brewster Buffaloes of 453 Squadron arrive overhead. There is nothing left for them to protect. HMS Electra, Express, and HMAS Vampire move through the wreckage, hauling men from water thick with fuel oil. 2,081 survivors are eventually brought aboard, packed onto every surface, oil-coated, wounded, crammed onto decks with nowhere to go. The flotilla reaches Singapore near midnight. 842 men do not come home. They include the 2 most senior naval officers in the Far East and decades of institutional knowledge about how war at sea was supposed to be fought. The Japanese losses: 3 aircraft, 18 men. In London, the morning of December 11th, Churchill is in bed working through his papers when the phone rings. It is Dudley Pound. His voice sounds odd, a sort of cough and gulp. Prime Minister, I have to report to you that the Prince of Wales and Repulse have both been sunk by the Japanese. Tom Phillips is drowned. Churchill will write later. In all the war, I never received a more direct shock. That same morning, HMS Exeter steams into Singapore Harbour. She is the heavy cruiser that had been sailing to reinforce Force Z. The ship Phillips was advised to wait for before he sailed. She arrives one day too late. Singapore, stripped of the naval shield it was never truly given, is now only a land fortress, which it was never designed to be. It falls on the 15th of February, 1942, 66 days after Force Z. Prince of Wales and Repulse were the first capital ships ever sunk solely by air power while actively defending themselves in open sea. Not at anchor, not by surprise, defending themselves, guns firing, engines at speed, and destroyed in under 2 hours. The naval world understood with varying degrees of reluctance what that meant. The battleship was finished as the primary instrument of naval power. The carrier was the future that had just proven itself in blood. After the war, American interrogators asked the Japanese officers who won the battle what they had learned from it. The attack had confirmed that the airplane was more powerful than the ship. It had raised the morale of Japanese air personnel enormously. And then came this. The Japanese still did not fully appreciate air power. Failure to recognize the value of air power was one of the greatest causes of our defeat. Japan won the battle that proved the carrier's supremacy, and then did not learn what their own victory taught. There is one more thread. Captain John Leach died on the bridge of Prince of Wales at 1:20 p.m. on December 10, 1941. He died in command of a ship whose anti-aircraft capability had been defeated by a single torpedo hit, serving under an admiral who could not be persuaded that land-based air posed a mortal threat to capital ships. His son, Henry, was 12 years old. 4 decades later, Admiral Sir Henry Leach became First Sea Lord. In 1982, when Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, he was one of the decisive voices for sending a naval task force to retake them, fully aware of what Argentine land-based aircraft and anti-ship missiles could do to surface ships. The lesson his father died proving in the South China Sea was the conviction Henry Leach carried through 40 years of naval service. The lesson did not have to be relearned. It only had to be remembered. September 2025. The South China Sea, 50 nautical miles east of Kuantan. HMS Prince of Wales, the carrier, holds station above the wreck of her namesake. Akabono holds position alongside. The wreaths go down. They drift on the current above 842 men and the world that sent them there. Captain Tennant's verdict on the men who killed his ship has been preserved in his official report. He chose his words with care. The enemy attacks were without doubt magnificently carried out. From a man who watched 513 of his crew go down in these waters, it is not generosity, it is precision. The enemy was very good, and they were right about what air power could do. The bells of Prince of Wales and Repulse have been brought home to Portsmouth. The ships remain where they fell. War graves on the seabed below 50 nautical miles of warm, clear water. Above them, a British carrier and a Japanese destroyer. The age of the battleship ended in 127 minutes. The age that replaced it is the Navy keeping watch today.